Hi, this is Mary Kopczynski, the CEO of RegAlytics, with your update on this week's 38,794 regulatory alerts. And yeah, sorry about the boring backdrop, but I'm home now. And while there were over 38,000 regulatory alerts, I'm going to continue on with part 3 of the RegAlytics breakdown on the One Big Beautiful Bill. For those of you disappointed that I'm not going to focus on the Genius Act that passed and was signed into law covering stablecoins, worry not, because I already covered that in episode 301. So that was the week of June 25th, and if you want the down low on that, I will put the YouTube link in the comments. But today, I'm going to talk about something that is the opposite of where I live, and more where I drove through in the last few weeks, which was miles and miles and miles of American farmland. Short version, the One Big Beautiful Bill adds additional incentives for farmers to keep American farmland as farmland, and it also increases protections for farmers suffering losses to farms. But let's take a step back and talk about farming generally. Why is farming something the federal government focuses on at all? I mean, why not leave it in the hands of the states? Well, 2 reasons really. 1, it's our food supply, which is pretty important. 2, if there's an issue like a drought or a blight of some sort, these crises rarely stay within state borders. So rather than have the 25 impacted states coordinate one crisis, while an overlapping but different set of 18 states coordinate a different crisis, it's just easier to manage it federally. In the U.S. generally, the first real farm bill was the New Deal after the Great Depression. The main intent there was to bring down prices so people could eat. After World War II in the 50s, the focus was about managing surplus and conservation efforts. In the 60s, we started seeing the farm bills more focused on poverty and SNAP benefits, which is what we often call food stamps. In the 2000s, we started seeing incentives for specific crops like biofuels and medicines. Then we got to post-2008 financial crisis, 2014, where the focus was making sure farmers and financial institutions weren't gaming the incentive system. So instead of a direct payments to do or not do something with your land, farmers could submit actual losses and be paid on those. So now that you have a decent history, let's talk about the One Big Beautiful Bill. So, keeping farmland in farming, section 70437, capital gains installment deferral for sales of farmland to qualified farmers. That is a mouthful, but here's what it means in plain English. If you sell your farmland to a qualified farmer, Uncle Sam will let you defer the capital gains tax and pay it in installments, but only if the land stays in agricultural use for at least 10 years after the sale. This is a new tax incentive aimed at keeping farmland from getting turned into housing developments or strip malls overnight. So let's put this into perspective. Imagine I'm a landowner who bought farmland decades ago and it's now worth a lot more. If I sell it to a commercial developer, I owe a hefty capital gains tax all at once for the profit I made on that sale. But if instead I sell to a qualified farmer, meaning a buyer who intends to work the land and meet whatever definition of bona fide farmer the law lays out, I can spread out my capital gains hit. The next section, strengthening farm disaster relief, which is section 10401, expansion of disaster reimbursement programs for things like livestock, forage, aquaculture, bees, and trees. Think of these programs like a government-backed insurance policy for farmers. First, the new bill includes higher payment rates. Second, it includes new coverage for things that weren't fully covered before, so notably unborn livestock. So yes, if a pregnant cow perishes in a disaster, previously the insurance program might compensate you for the cow, but not for the calf she was carrying. Now it appears they'll account for the loss of that unborn calf too, and it's an acknowledgement that losing breeding animals actually has a compounding effect on a farmer's herd. Another new coverage, losses for bird depredation. Depredation is a fancy word for wild animals killing or destroying your stock or crop. So that's like birds attacking your crop. Third, broader accessibility. So disaster programs often have all these rules about who qualifies and how much you can get. The process might be less of a bureaucratic nightmare, we hope, and that's what's new in the Farm Bill. That is it this week for RegAlytics. We have the global supply chain of the world's regulatory alerts in one very easy-to-use place. If you need a solution for anything related to regulation, give us a call.